day when the 5 former officers were indicted. Now, we have reached out to several of the former officers' lawyers. William Massey represents Emmett Martin, and he says in part he and his team are representing Emmett Martin in the federal indictment. Now, we have been expecting it and are ready to move forward.
We also contacted Mike Stingle. He's the attorney for former officer Demetrius Haley in his state case, and he confirms that his client will also be represented on the federal charges too. He told us the indictment is disappointing but not surprising, that his client will plead not guilty and defend himself in court.
Now, Blake Ballin represents Desmond Mills Jr. He said in part, Mr. Mills maintains his innocence. He will turn himself in on the federal indictment and continue to defend himself against all allegations in both the state and federal court system.
Darius Bean's attorney, his name is John Keith Perry, will also be representing his client on the federal charges. He had no comment for us today. We reached out to attorney Martin Zumach as well. He is the attorney for Justin Smith, and he is out of the office today. So basically, you do see a theme here, though.
Right.
Those that did make a comment that their clients are going to maintain their innocence, and they just need their day in court so that they can prove that to a jury.
And then we do know that the Nichols family attorney Benjamin Crump, did announce that he's going to have a press conference later today at 5 o'clock, and that's going to be at Mississippi Boulevard Christian Church, which we know was the same place that they held all of those press conferences whenever all of this first happened. So that's happening at 5, and we'll be live streaming it, so please tune in here or on our app at 5 o'clock.
One more other attorney comment I want to share with you. Attorney Blake Ballin, who is Desmond Mills Jr.'s attorney, also responding, saying in a statement that as in the state case, Mr. Mills maintains his innocence. He will turn himself in on the federal indictment and continue to defend himself against all the allegations. Of course, we're going to be following the latest that comes out of this indictment and keep you up to date on all of it. We are waiting for the news conference to start, and I believe it has. This is Kristen Clark. No? Okay, we're having problems getting that signal, but Kristen Clark is speaking right now. She is the U.S. Assistant Attorney General for the Civil Rights Office, for the DOJ Civil Rights Office out of Washington. Of course, she has been instrumental in not only the deep dive case that we told you about, the pattern and practice investigation that's underway and could take really years. These are very, very in-depth. They do lots of interviews. We know that we've covered various community meetings that have taken place where they invite the public to come in, make some comments about any experiences they may have had with where they feel the police used excessive force. And so they start documenting all of it. They go through all the records. They interview many, many officers, their supervisors as well, and then they'll come to a conclusion at the end, which usually involves some kind of memorandum of understanding that says, okay, from now on you will do this, but we'll see how that develops. I believe we now have Kristen Clark ready to go.
Of those who knew him and loved him, it is tragic to see a life cut short at 29 with so many milestones unmet, so many words unsaid, and so much potential unfulfilled. Tyre Nichols should be alive today. No one in this country should have to bury a loved one because of police violence. The Justice Department will never stop working to fulfill our duty to protect the American people from excessive and unlawful use of force by officials acting under color of law. Since this tragic incident occurred, the Civil Rights Division has been working alongside prosecutors from the U.S. Attorney's Office as well as FBI agents here in Memphis, and I want to thank this team for working so hard in investigating this case and guiding it through our system of justice. I'll note that the defendants are presumed innocent under our law, and now the federal criminal process will take its course. I now turn the podium back over to U.S. Attorney Ritz, who will describe the indictment in further detail. Thank you.
Thank you, Assistant Attorney General Clark. I want to go through the specifics of the charges. The indictment charges all 5 defendants in 4 counts. First, the indictment alleges that the defendants unlawfully assaulted Mr. Nichols and failed to intervene in the unlawful assault. By doing so, they deprived Mr. Nichols of the right to be free from unreasonable force. Second, the indictment alleges that the defendants knew that Mr. Nichols, who was an arrestee in police custody, had a serious medical need, and that they disregarded that medical need by failing to render medical aid and by failing to advise the police dispatcher and emergency medical personnel of the circumstances. By doing so, the defendants deprived Mr. Nichols of the right to be free from a police officer's deliberate indifference to an arrestee's serious medical needs. Third, the indictment alleges that the defendants intentionally conspired to withhold and omit material information and to make false and misleading statements in an effort to cover up the use of unreasonable force on Mr. Nichols. The indictment lists several overt acts in furtherance of this conspiracy, including that the defendants did not tell the MPD dispatcher, an MPD supervisor, Memphis Fire Department EMTs, or Memphis Fire Department paramedics that they knew Mr. Nichols had been struck repeatedly, that the defendants used their body-worn cameras in such a way as to limit the capture of evidence at the arrest scene, and that the defendants provided false and misleading information about the arrest scene for the official incident report. Finally, the indictment alleges that the defendants obstructed justice by providing false and misleading information and withholding material information in their communications with a police supervisor and a police detective, both of whom were tasked with writing reports on the arrest of Tyre Nichols. As the Assistant Attorney General said, these charges, of course, as with any criminal case, the indictment contains allegations only, and defendants are presumed innocent until proven guilty. I want to say that the first two counts alleging civil rights violations resulting in death carry a sentence of up to life in prison, and the other two counts, the obstruction of justice counts, carry a potential prison sentence of up to 20 years in prison. I also want to say thank you to the dedicated team of prosecutors and law enforcement agents who are working on this case. This case is being handled by my office's newly formed National Security and Civil Rights Unit, working hand in hand with the Civil Rights Division. I'm proud of our team and proud of their commitment to protecting the civil rights of all Americans. Now we are able to take just a few questions.
Do you anticipate further charges?
At this time, we would not comment on the existence or status of any criminal investigation. We are here to announce that the 5 defendants that we've charged today have been charged in this indictment.
Freya Jones, News Channel 3. Can you explain the weight that these charges have over the current criminal charges here in Shelby County and how this could impact the ongoing legal proceedings here?
Yes, these cases would be handled on separate tracks. It's 2 different systems. So the state charges would be handled in state court, federal charges here in federal court. And the state court and the state system over there would set the trial date and things like that. Over here in the federal system, the same thing would happen, and we're not going to make any predictions today about how that timeline might emerge.
So we're seeing that the DOJ is already conducting these interviews with people in the Memphis community about their experience with the Scorpion Unit and MPD. Did that contribute to these charges at all, or is that separate, like the pattern of practice?
The Justice Department is actively conducting community meetings and gathering information in the course of carrying out its civil pattern or practice investigation into the Memphis Police Department. We look forward to continuing to hear from the community as that investigation takes its course, but we will underscore that that is a separate investigation from the criminal charges that we're announcing today.
Final question.
Do you expect a hearing tomorrow or very soon?
Mr. Saines, I believe in the federal case, we expect that the defendants would be making their initial appearance in the coming days. Thank you all for being here.
Okay, so that concludes the news conference by 2 fairly higher-up people within the Department of Justice. The Assistant Attorney General, Kristen Clark, represents the Civil Rights Division out of Washington, and U.S. Attorney Kevin Ritz represents West Tennessee. And really, I guess we kind of outlaid what those charges were going to be prior to the news conference because we saw the court documents. But I think what I was struck with when he said life in prison.
Yes, same as me. I
for
was
those
thinking,
charges, and that it's separate from the state case.
Right. The first 2 counts were up to life in prison. The second 2, he said, up to 20 years. So yes, that's a significant amount of time, and all 5, of course, are facing all of these counts. So here's a look at those former officers who were being indicted. These are the state charges they are facing. Again, this is Justin Smith, Emmett Martin III, Desmond Mills Jr., Demetrius, Haley, and Tadarius Bean. We're seeing state charges of second-degree murder, aggravated assault, aggravated kidnapping while possessing a weapon, and then aggravated kidnapping causing bodily harm. And of course, this is not including the federal charges we just heard.
And we don't know how those charges are going to be prosecuted. In addition to these federal charges, because sometimes the federal case, once that is announced, takes precedence. But excessive force and failure to intervene, deliberate indifference, conspiracy to witness tamper, and obstruction of justice through witness tampering are the federal charges that they are now facing as a result of what happened here. And of course, you heard them kind of get into those specifics about exactly the lengths they say these five officers you see here went to cover up extensively what happened with Tyre Nichols on that terrible day in January.
Yes, they mentioned didn't tell medical personnel, dispatchers, supervisors, or EMTs and fire departments that they even hit or struck Nichols, and that brought in a failure to render aid. So, and body cameras were limited to capture the evidence at the scene. Lots of cover up, it sounds like here. Here is a timeline starting back to when everything happened on January 7th. That's when Tyre Nichols was attacked again. 3 days later, January 10th, Tyre Nichols died. Then January 20th, that's when those 5 former MPD officers were charged. Sorry, lost my thought there.
Fired.
Yes, and fired.
And of course, Memphis Police Chief C.J. Davis getting all kinds of accolades for how she handled
that.
Ben Crump, the attorney we mentioned, who's having a news conference at 5 tonight, saying it was the blueprint for how cities should handle this kind of thing. The video of the beating and the attack, of course, we'll never forget that, released on January 27th. And then in March, City Council passed that several police reforms, including an annual review of police training techniques and requiring only marked police cars can conduct traffic stops and requiring more police data collection. All right, so we have Stephen Reels, ABC 24 reporter, who's also at the federal courthouse today.
Yes, and he's standing there live to give us a little bit of an update and recap what we just heard. Stephen, take it away.
Pepper and Richard, the easiest thing to say right now, like you were saying, these charges, they're out right now. This federal indictment has 4 of them listed for these officers: excessive force and failure to intervene, deliberate indifference, conspiracy to witness tampering, and obstruction of justice by witness tampering. You were just hearing it a little bit earlier. A lot of claims were being made by these officers to hinder this investigation to move forward. One of those, I was looking through the document earlier, said that 2 of those officers were being held up by Nichols, that he was strong enough to do that. That was a very big claim right there. Now, there have been some statements already sent in by the attorneys representing these officers, 2 of them saying they're still trying to maintain their innocence, but they are prepared to move forward with everything. Of course, we will be keeping you updated as everything develops. We know right now that the Ben Crump and Romanucci, the attorneys representing the Nichols family, are very grateful that this is moving forward and are saying that this is giving the family hope. Of course, we are anticipating to hear more from them in just, I'm doing the math here, just a little bit over an hour. Zaria Oates is going to be covering that at 5 p.m. But for now, at federal court, I'm Stephen Reels.
All right, thank you, Stephen. Of course, we have heard from a number of the attorneys representing those officers, and there's really no need to go through all the statements because they're basically all the same, and they say that their clients are innocent and they anxiously await their day in court. Also worth mentioning, another big story that we're following tonight regarding Memphis Police misconduct. We expect that Steve Mulroy, the Shelby County DA, his office is going to be releasing that footage that they've been promising of the shooting in December of last year of Jalen McKenzie, and we have been expecting that now for a couple of weeks since Mulroy said that the TBI investigation had wrapped up and that he was prepared to release the video. This, of course, was the shooting that happened on American Way.
Yes,
in
definitely.
December.
And I think it's worth noting, before we get to that 5 o'clock live stream with Attorney Crump, he had said back when all of this came out that this case, Tyre Nichols' case, was set the precedence or the blueprint of how the justice system should move in cases like this. I mean, he praised C.J. Davis for being able to move things along. So it'll be interesting to see again, how now there's state charges, federal charges, how they both can handle those, and how fast the justice system moves in this.
Absolutely. Well, we are going to keep you up to date on all of this. With any more information regarding the investigation, all you have to do, of course, is download our ABC 24 app. And then at 5 o'clock, as Pepper mentioned, attorneys Ben Crump and Romanucci, representing the Nichols family, are holding a news conference at Mississippi Boulevard Christian Church. Of course, that's on Bellevue Boulevard, and our team will be there live streaming that for you. So all the more reason to download that app and catch us right back here at 5 o'clock to hear the Nichols family response.